Hey guys, I got a good one for you today. We're going to be adding a couple of important things to Shape Game. The first one is we're going to be bringing some feedback to the player when they tap on a shape. Two types of feedback, really. One is the taptic or haptic feedback, and the other one is a visual shaking style feedback. And then the other one is that I cleaned up the interface a little bit, and I used a bit of a hack to do it. So I'm excited to show you exactly how I figured this out, and you can let me know if I've done something stupid. As I was playing the game, I really noticed that it was lacking feedback to the player when they tapped on a shape. And more importantly, it was lacking feedback to the player when they tapped on the wrong shape. So anytime the player is interacting with the scene, they should understand why that thing is happening. And in a game like this, as I was play testing my game, I realized that every time I tapped on shape, nothing happened. You know, if I got the right shape, it disappeared, but I didn't really get any feedback. If I tapped on the wrong shape, absolutely nothing happened, which was even worse. Anyway, let's dive into the code and I'll show you what I've done. Okay, so in the level 1 class, I have a function called shapeClicked, and this is what triggers every time that someone taps on a shape. And there's really it's basically just an if-else statement, right? You either are tapping on a shape that is the correct shape, the shape that the target is, or you're tapping on a shape that isn't the target. And the way that I implemented this feedback was pretty simple because Apple builds this right into Swift. It's a UI impact feedback generator, and it comes in a few different styles. So when you tap on the correct shape, it's just a light tap, just a very simple tap to let you know you did something. And you just implement that by saying impact occurred. We do the same exact thing down here for the else condition, which is when you tap the wrong shape, except that I'm using the style of heavy, which is just a more impactful impact. I'm also doing something else in this else statement, that is to add this shake effect to the shape that I just tapped. To do that, what I actually ended up doing was finding an extension on the internet just through a Google search, which allows me to extend the built-in SK action functionality by adding this shake function to it. So that's a class function, and what it basically does is it takes a duration, it takes an amplitude X, an amplitude Y, and it, through these parameters here, outputs a sequence of actions to play when it's triggered. So that's what's happening here. I just say that I want it to run for a duration of 0.3 seconds at an amplitude X of 50, an amplitude Y of 50, and then it runs that animation. So I can show you that one. I can't actually show you the haptic feedback because you need to feel that. But I can show you this one here. If I tap on the wrong shape, it shakes. And if I tap on the right shape, it proceeds to add points and go away, right? So wrong shape, and I get this nice little shake animation, and then the right shape, and it goes away. So that is all working, and it adds a lot of feedback to the player, which is so important in games like this. You need to be able to communicate both when you're doing something right and when you're doing something wrong. And I will continue to bring more of this feedback into the gameplay as I polish this game going forward. And that's going to be things like other types of animations, maybe particle effects and other stuff like that. So if you want to see how I progress through that, make sure you get subscribed so you don't miss out. The other thing that was important to me was fixing this UI. So let me go back to the previous version here when this loads. So you can see here, the UI is terrible right now, especially for the main menu. You don't want to see your timer, a blank target and a blank score on your main menu. I'm using these scenes in content view so all of these different scenes, right? And then I have game state, main, game state playing, game state loss, game state win, and I just toggle that to change the scene. So when I tap on the button, it toggles it from main to playing, and then rather than displaying the main scene within the sprite view, it displays level 1 scene. So how did I get rid of all of these UI elements? Well, let me go back to the new version. Inside of level 1, I created a new binding called isPlaying, and then in the update function, I just toggle is playing based on the game state. So if the game state is playing, then the game is playing, so is playing is true. Otherwise, is playing is false. And then I use that inside of content view to toggle the opacity of the element that I want to disappear. So here, this VStack, which contains the time and the target shape, when game data.isPlaying is true, then that will be an opacity of 1. And then when it's false, it's an opacity of 0. So if I change this 0 to 1, you can see the timer and the target shape come back. But we want it at 0 so that it's hidden when you're on your main menu. And then when you start the game, it comes back. And because obviously we're just reversing this action for the other part of these UI elements, those elements disappear. So it's very simple, very easy to do. It's probably a hack. It's not, there might be other ways to do this. This is the way that I came up with to communicate from a value that is obtained within the Spritekit scene and communicate that over to the different levels. And that's partly because of how, if you remember, we're just displaying these different scenes. All of these different scenes are being displayed differently depending on the game state. The only other thing that I really did this week was hook up high scores, and that is very, very simple as well, which was just to use user defaults and set it for a high score. And then I'm just displaying that on the high score page. In upcoming videos, I want to start adding Game Center, I want to add particle effects, and I want to finish this game before June 6th, WWDC, which is Apple's developer conference. It's coming up. I want to have this whole game, this whole playlist done by that day. That's my target. So stay tuned, get subscribed if you're not, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.